Hi and welcome to today's lecture where I will talk about compassion and self-compassion by nonviolent communication. There are several ways to reach compassion, but today we will look into nonviolent communication. So join me. And today's disposition is that we first will talk about my journey to compassion by nonviolent communication. Then we will look into the 4 steps of nonviolent communication. We'll also look into the goal of nonviolent communication. We will do an exercise in nonviolent communication. And we will also talk about why compassion and self-compassion is important in social work. So, join me. My journey to compassion and self-compassion started actually when I was realizing that I was highly sensitive. If you want to look into the personality trait high sensitivity, I suggest that you look into Elaine Aron's research, as she is one of the first that done research about this personality trait. It is not a diagnosis. It's actually very important to say that. It's a personality trait. For me, it's about emotions. For someone else, it could be that they sense the smell more thoroughly as a suggestion. But going back to me, as I am highly sensitive, I experience emotions more thoroughly. So when I experience the essence in Equine thesis social work, where the horse responds to emotions in humans, and we as humans need to be aware of our emotions and needs to understand the horse response and then regulate our emotions by listening to our own needs and wishes. I understood that what we were doing is the same as in nonviolent communication, as emotional language is our common language between horses and humans. Then by working with nonviolent communication, I realized that by listening to myself and others, I was exercising self-compassion and compassion. My own self-worth and self-esteem developed as in those I met together with horses. So my research, my thesis, Equine assisted social work, a conversation room with potential opportunities for young people with self-harming behaviors and their staff, deepened my understanding of the importance of compassion. Because these girls, as many of others of course also, have not so high self-worth or self-esteem. So it's important for them to work with those kind of things. So I would say that the horses became teachers to the path of the heart, both for me, other professionals in this field, and for me as a researcher and also a practitioner in the field later on. Going back to nonviolent communication, it is a communication and conflict resolution model inspired by Mahatma Gandhi. The goal is to live connected to oneself, others, and the world. In South Africa, it is named Ubuntu. In Germany, Bulgaria, or Sweden, we may have another word for this, but I prefer using this South African name, Ubuntu, here. So, but please, if you have another word for it in your country, let me know. Nonviolent communication could also be called an emotional language-based compassion training, as I suggested before. It is a way to get out of dominance and violence. In the case of the Equine assisted social work, you could say that we as professionals get more equal partners with the clients. So then we get out of dominance, the hierarchical system, you could say. It all started out of psychotherapist Marshall Rosenberg's experience with therapy-resistant clients. And you could say that maybe we have a bit the same experience, Marshall Rosenberg, me and the colleagues that I had done the research on, that the clients may not be resistant, but maybe they don't have the necessary trust in the professionals because they have been in and out of social work. So these girls that were in my study are maybe those clients that have the least trust to us as social workers. And then it's important to maybe take the horse in, and by the horse we also included non-violent communication. I also want to mention that Marshall Rosenberg passed away 2015. So if you look at the video clip I suggested, a TED Talk, you can see a video clip with Marshall Rosenberg there. If you want to learn more about non-violent communication, there are several YouTube clips. If you search by his name, Marshall Rosenberg, you will find several video clips where you can look into this communication form more thoroughly if you want to. So, if we look to nonviolent communication, you could say that there are 4 steps that are important in nonviolent communication. I will read them out here as number 1, 2, 3, 4, but they don't need to be in that order. We could start actually from the bottom. If we have a dialogue we could start about the wishes, we could start about the feelings. But anyhow, I'll read them out. The first step is to share the observation. The second is to share the feelings. The third step is to find out what needs are met or unmet, as the feelings give us that information. Because every action is actually an attempt to meet a need. The fourth step is to make an honest wish out of a desire, not a claim or a demand. So if we go back to the research I've done, we can look into this photo. It is not from a client actually in the study, because that would be unethical. This is a lady that participated in a photo shooting we were doing, and she is not a client. She agreed on participating as acting as a client in these settings. And the other person in the photo is me standing behind the head of the horse. Anyhow, going back to the research done, in a setting like this, it could be that we made an observation that the girl is walking away from the trial with the horse. You see she's moving away from the horse, and the horse seemed to be a bit more connected to me as a professional. The feelings here might be unhappiness and unease. If we look at the girl's expression in the face and her body language, it could be that. It is important to just make a suggestion, otherwise it can be perceived as violent, and that we don't want to. The next step is to find out the need, and the need that is not met could be togetherness and belonging. Again, important to just make a suggestion, otherwise it can be perceived as violent. Going further, the wish is to connect with the horse and the professional in the setting. We actually don't know. This we need to have a dialogue about. So if this was a setting with equine-assisted social work, we would then have a dialogue with the girl to try to find out which feelings are met or not met with her. And she could have her own suggestions, what feelings that have been awakened, maybe not unease, maybe she's insecure. So we need to have a dialogue and only hypothesis about the feelings that are awakened in the setting. So we need to meet on more equal terms with each other, in a dialogue. And that is also something that is important, as I said before, with nonviolent communication, to get out of dominance, to be more equal. The objective of nonviolent communication is not to change people and their behavior in order to get our way. It is to establish relationships based on honesty and empathy, which will eventually fulfill everyone's needs. We will do an exercise where I ask you to imagine a situation where you disagree with someone or the other person behaves in a way you don't like. You don't need to start with the feelings. You can actually start with the needs that is not met. Of course, it could be emotions that are met, but I think in this exercise, it is likely that it is need that are unmet. So again, imagine a situation where you disagree with someone or the other person behaves in a way that you dislike. I will give you a minute to think about a possible situation where you could start from. So again, think about a situation where you disagree with someone or the other person behaves in a way you don't like. And it could be the needs both unmet and met in this situation. But probably there are needs that are not met. And when you have found a situation where you disagree with someone or a person that behaves in a way you don't like, then we go further to the next part. Going back. What if you then make an observation of what kind of feelings both you and the other person experienced in that moment? Maybe you could be Sherlock Holmes and try to find out what needs are not met in you and the other. It might be different needs to find out both your needs. So again, it could be that the person you argued with have different needs than you have. Most possibly it is like that. Or if they're a person you don't like, try to figure out what needs are not met by you and what feelings are awakened by this person. So depending on which of these you have chosen, you may have more attention to yourself. Going back to this, if you have imagine a situation where you disagree with someone or you might be more interested in both your feelings and the other feelings and met the needs in both of you. But if there is a person that behaves in a way you don't like, maybe you start to have the intention with yourself, with your own feelings and needs firstly. And then maybe you try to figure out what kind of needs and feelings that are in the other person. But in both scenarios, you look into what kind of feelings, what kind of needs in both of you. So one important thing is that all conflict or crisis arise when needs are not met. And there I want to remind you that you use hypotheses in a dialogue, as unsolicited demands or advice may arouse defense, and when working with yourself or the other, be aware that some needs can take months or years to find. So when the feeling arouses again, welcome the feeling and be curious and grateful that you can explore the needs and desires once again. So if you're going back to the exercise, when you thought about someone that you dislike, maybe you then meet another person that you don't dislike for some reason. Then maybe the same feeling arises. Then you have an opportunity again to try to find out what need in you are not met and what need is not met in the other person that acts in a way that you don't like. Another thing that is important is that conflict and crisis can be between groups and countries, and nonviolent communication are also used in crisis and conflicts between countries, so not just between persons as we did an exercise here. So take this exercise with you, of course, when you have more time, and do it more thoroughly, of course. And remind yourself that you can only give hypotheses about the needs and the feelings. Because when working, for example, with one feeling, it can take years to find out what a really need that is behind that feeling. So the important thing is to try to have a dialogue with each other to find out the feelings or needs or wishes. As I said before, you can start in any direction. The step doesn't need to be taken in the order 2, 3, and 4, as it might be easier for some of you to put into words what you wish for and the needs that is met or unmet. The important thing is to listen with emotional empathy and to be curious with both the other and yourself. Why then is it important with compassion and self-compassion? If we only care about others, we risk experience empathy and compassion fatigue. Not likely in this group, maybe, but if we only care about ourselves, we get disconnected and can feel futility. There are of course other arguments, but these seem to be the most important here. About being interconnected and about interpersonal relationship, I highlight this person, Lema Gabové, a Nobel Prize winner 2011. She said, "I am what I am because who we all are." And I like to mention another person that I'm inspired of, that's Desmond Tutu. He says, "People's destinies are interconnected and our lives are deeply affected by how our fellow humans beings live." And again, going back to to Ubuntu, to take care of oneself and others, as well as the environment, as we are all connected. And here I like to mention that we are all born with the ability to be compassionate, but we are in the education system, in especially the Western society, we are educated more to be connected with the brain and not the mind. And that is actually important to realize and think about how it is in your country. How do we educate our children? Because we are actually born with the ability to be compassionate with others. And also worth to mention is that regarding that we are connected, because we are all connected to each other, and what happens in other parts of the world can make us afraid. It can make us feel unease and so forth, as for example during the COVID pandemic. For those of you that want to immerse yourself in compassion and self-compassion, there is a book entitled Compassion Bridging Practice and Science, edited by Tanya Singer and Matthias Waltz. You can download the link if you want to. The book is free of charge. In the book you can have the possibility to both read, listen and see videos. If you want to look further into this with compassion and self-compassion, you also have a chapter in this book, both with text and videos, about non-violent communication as one way to reach compassion and self-compassion. Why is it important to talk about compassion and self-compassion? Yeah, one way is that many social workers after education quit as the demands are too high. Me myself have gone in and out of social work, and self-compassion have been my relief and resilience. Example, giving an example that in my early days I would say that I prefer not to meet a client that had experienced rape. But during my work with self-compassion and compassion, I today have no difficulties to work with a person that has experienced rape. Because under my journey, I learned that I need to work with my feelings that are not so nice, not so pleasant. Because if I do that, if I can stay in the present moment when it feels unbearable and the feelings are so tense, if I experience that, then I'm not afraid of meeting a person that might have really high anxiety, as someone that has experienced, for example, rape. And if you want to have help to do this kind of work and want to understand how I can stay in the present moment when it feels unbearable, you might not be a Buddhist as I am, but you can still listen to the Buddhist monk in this YouTube clip that I have put in here in this presentation. We don't have time for it now, but you can do that. Just click on the link and go and listen to this Buddhist monk that actually help us understand how important it is to stay with our feelings and not run away from them. Because we often do, if we have feelings that we really don't want to touch, we could start by going to the kitchen, find something to eat, maybe go into social media or looking at a series or TV show or something. Some people shop new clothes and so on, just to feel good and not get in touch with those feelings that are not so pleasant. And here my suggestion to you is to welcome all kinds of feelings and explore them and try to find out what need is behind that kind of feeling, to get to know yourself. And the most important thing, I think, is to really listen to yourself, because when you listen to yourself and your own wishes, your own self-worth and self-esteem goes up. And I think that's really important to work with if we want to have resilience and continue working in social work that can be kind of problematic. And I want to give you also this little nice picture of the horse and the boy or the girl, or is it a fox, or is it, maybe it's a dog. You decide. The horse we can see anyhow. So I'll read it for you. Sometimes your mind plays tricks on you. It may tell you you are no good, that it's all hopeless. But remember this, you are loved and important, and you bring to this world things no one else can. So hold on. When we are Talking about compassion and self-compassion, I already said in the beginning that it is a way to open our hearts. Here I will give you some help with meditation with Pema Chodron. That is maybe one of my favorite Buddhist monks. I'm very inspired by several Buddhist monks, and one of my favorites is this lady Pema Chodron that lives in United States of America. For those of you that want to read about self-compassion and compassion out of a research point of view and not from a Buddhist way, I suggest that you read Christine Neff's work. That is one of many researchers in the field of compassion and self-compassion. But if we look to Pema Chodron, she says, if one wishes suffering not to happen to the people on the earth, it begins with a kind heart. She also says, if we want there to be peace in the world, we have to be brave enough to soften what is rigid in our hearts, to find the soft spot and stay with it. We have to have that kind of courage and take that kind of responsibility. That's the true practice of peace. And now I start the meditation, and we will try to do this meditation together and hope that the technique will be with us. We hope so. Bear with me, there are some ads here, but hopefully, yes, there we go.
I'd like to speak on the subject of Tonglen. I'd like to begin right away by reviewing the technique that was taught to the students of Trungpa Rinpoche, that he taught to his students. And this is the form of Tonglen that I have always taught, and that is taught here at Gampo Abbey. And I make this preface because there's actually, even though the essence of Tonglen is always the same, there's many different ways of teaching it, slightly different versions, some of which I'm going to present. So the technique is said to have 4 stages, and sometimes it's thought of as 3 stages, with the third part having like 2 parts, just to make it more Buddhist. And the third part of the fourth part has 6 parts. No, not really, I'm just kidding. So the first is taught as just touching in with stillness or openness of mind, just touching in. And the way Trungpa Rinpoche used to express that is just a flash of absolute bodhicitta. Now, often when that is taught and that instruction is given, people really don't have a sense at all of what that might mean. So Rinpoche suggested that when we're doing formal meditation, that we listen to the gong as a way of just looking straight ahead. Just listen to the gong at the beginning of the Tonglen as a way of just resting your mind, some kind of openness and stillness. So if you would all just sit up and look straight ahead and just listen to the sound of the gong as if this were the beginning of your Tonglen practice. You've been meditating. Maybe there's already some openness. Maybe the gong shocks you into some openness out of your fantasy world. But in any case, seize that sort of moment and look straight out and listen to the sound of the gong almost until it's gone. And when it begins to die out, then begin breathing in the quality or texture of claustrophobia, usually described as dark, thick, and heavy. Sometimes also say hot. Breathing it in. Breathing out the texture or quality of spaciousness, clear, light, fresh. So one breathes in, claustrophobia in this form of a visualization. And one can breathe that into your whole body, taking it into your whole body, or one can breathe it into the heart, sense of this more concentrated, claustrophobic, dark, hot, heavy, thick, breathing it into the heart or the whole body, either way. But in either case, when you breathe in, there's a sense of opening. Sometimes the image is used of the heart widening, getting very, very large so that you could take in any amount of claustrophobia because you just expand as much as you can. So in a way, it's an exercise of opening the heart to what we usually want to push away. So visualizing the dark, heavy, hot coming in, visualizing clear, white, cool, refreshing going out. It's a very thorough sending out, like sending it out from all the pores of your body, radiating it out. And during this stage, your eyes can be open or closed. The Lojong slogan is to practice taking and sending on the medium of the breath. So that's to say you synchronize this with your breath. Your breath coming in brings in the heavy, hot claustrophobia. Breath going out radiates out, clear, light, bright, refreshing. And you just do this for a while, breathing in and out until it feels synchronized with the breath, doing this visualization. Also, the breath can be manipulated. You can breathe in very deeply and send out very fully, but always give the in-breath and the out-breath equal time. That's important. So you do that for a while. There's no designated time, but until it feels synchronized. And then you move on to what is considered the main part of the practice. And here you use a specific object. The other day I suggested that people do Tonglen for their mother. So it would go like this. Breathing in, you take away from your mother anything that you feel, and your mother can have already died. That's all right, it doesn't really matter. Just to have a visualization or hold the face or the name of your mother, taking away from her, breathing in from her anything that you feel used to cause her distress or currently causes her distress. And sending out relief in whatever form you wish. Which is to say, sometimes people say the word compassion or the word strength or the word happiness or something like this, contentment, and it means something to them. It's not just abstract. That word has emotional meaning. But other times that people find words too abstract, and so instead they will send something that they feel their mother that would make their mother happy, such as beautiful flowers or a lovely day or anything really. But the idea is to send something that would produce well-being and let your mother be happy and relaxed and free of suffering. So the in-breath really is the compassion breath. You're wishing your mother to be free of suffering. The out-breath is the loving kindness breath. You're wishing her to be happy and at ease. So in this main part of Tonglen, no matter who you're doing it for, it's always you always try to have it be as real and personal as possible. Now, I chose mother because in our culture, mother is often very loaded. And so I knew in a room this size, there might actually be very few who could really do it for their mother easily and with a good heart and goodwill. And there would be a larger number in a group in the West who would feel much more complicated, anything from confused and kind of ambiguous feelings to actual dislike, which even that could be maybe too gentle a word. So knowing that, I said, if in doing the practice for your mother you find it blocked in some way by your genuine emotions, don't feel that you have failed. Instead, just shift the focus of the Tonglen and begin to do Tonglen with your feelings. So in other words, suppose you're feeling fear or anger, irritation, resentment, anything like this. Breathe in that feeling. Breathe it in completely. I personally like the idea of breathing it into the heart. That's how I usually do it, and making the heart very large. But you can also just breathe it into your whole being. That feeling, breathe it in and then send out relief, whatever you feel is needed. But then we come to the important next stage, which is considered the expansion stage. And this is either considered as a fourth stage, or I actually like to think of it as part of the third stage. It's almost simultaneous as doing it for yourself or doing it for your mother, and that is you expand. So for instance, if you breathe in the troubled feelings that you're having and send out relief, then you start breathing in for all the people who are in this kind of conflicted relationship with their parents or loved ones, and sending out relief to all of them, so that your very personal experience that you're having right on the spot, which you might feel ashamed of, these feelings, but instead of them being an obstacle, they actually become the basis of Maitri for yourself and compassion for other people in the same boat. Likewise, if you're just simply doing it for your mother and it's a genuine, open heart, you can feel the heart opening and you find it easy to do and actually rewarding to do, then as quite quickly you also do it for all the other mothers or all the other people that are in your mother's situation, maybe that are very ill, so, as your mother is, or very, very depressed as your mother is, or very maybe holding some kind of a grudge. We'll do it for all the other Jewish mothers.
Thank you very much for experiencing this with me. And thanks for your attention. And don't hesitate to contact me if you have any questions or suggestions of reading for me or the other way around. So ask me if you want to, and you have my contact here. And again, thanks for your attention, and I wish you all a lovely day. Thank you.